That's okay. Where are the people that stopped the poachers and why are they not helping them? They actually are helping them. The problem in Rwanda is there is a lot of mountain and not a lot of ranges. So they're there, but they have a lot of mountain to protect. And in Rwanda, it borders on Uganda and it borders on the Congo. So the gorillas can actually go into the other countries. So the rangers are from 3 different countries in those national parks. And being a ranger is actually really dangerous because they're dealing with poachers all the time. And in a third world country like Rwanda, it's expensive to pay the rangers to look after the gorillas. So often a lot of non-for-profit organisations actually pay for the rangers to look after the gorillas. So they are there, they just have a lot of territory to cover and they can't be everywhere at the same time. So rangers are amazing and yeah, but they've got a lot of ground to cover in to protect the gorilla families. And the last question I've got here is, have I ever met a poacher? And the answer is yes, I have met a poacher. And in Rwanda, when we went up for our gorilla trek up into the mountain, the guide that took us up there was actually an ex-poacher. So he used to poach the mountain gorillas and he was caught and they actually rehabilitated him. And because he was a poacher and he knew the mountains so well, they employed him as a poacher when he was rehabilitated to... poachers only poach because they need the money. That's really simply, they're poor. So for them to feed their families, for them to have money for their children to eat, they have to do what they have to do to get the food. And for a lot in Rwanda, poaching is an option because people pay the money to go in and kill the gorillas, because people outside of Africa will pay for their hands, they will pay for their heads, and they'll pay for their feet as trophies. So poachers get paid good money to get the gorillas. So when they reform them, they actually give them a job. So then they don't need to be poachers because they're earning money guiding people up into the mountains to find the gorillas and show them the gorillas. So I think it's fantastic that instead of actually making them feel like criminals, they've educated them on why it's important that we look after our gorillas and why it's important that the world sees their gorillas and that they can have a role in protecting the gorillas. So I thought that was a fantastic question, by the way, whoever asked that one. I think that's, and also the poachers or the reformed poachers know where all the gorilla families are, so they can actually get you closer to the families a lot quicker. So that's why they actually rehabilitate them and use their skills in a good way.
That is awesome. Thank you, Ms. Kress. Ms. Kress, those questions that you just answered were questions that were written by our students in the beginning of the reading. Now,
okay.
we have just finished the reading, so we do have a few more questions for you. Is that all right?
That's perfectly fine. I'll try and answer them.
Okay. Daniela, please stand up. Daniela has a very interesting question for you. Over here. Go ahead.
What happened to Lucius' family?
What happened to Lucius' family? Lucius the leopard.
Oh, Lucius the family, the leopard's family. That's a good question too. I think in the end he's come good. So, but yeah, no, I hadn't even actually thought of his family. I was sort of just sticking with the and leopards are very solitary. When you're in Africa, you don't often find leopards together. So I think I've written him as a character that's fairly solitary, because when I was in Africa, we always found leopards on their own. So if that answers your question.
Thank you. And now we have Miss Scarlett, and these are questions from our second graders. Come over here.
Okay.
So that you can see. There we go. Over here.
How long did it take you to write the book?
Oh, that's a good
How
question.
long did it take you to read the book?
Yeah, every book is actually different because I love to write. We go to Mission Beach every year in the September for 2 weeks. And when I'm by the ocean, I seem to be able to write. So sometimes I can go to Mission and I can get a first draft done in the 2 weeks, but it might take me maybe another year to actually edit it, and I then have to send it off to someone who edits it. And that is actually a bigger process than getting all your ideas down, because when you're editing, you're rewriting, you're redrafting. And I actually don't like that process because I'm creative, so I just like to write. But most books would take probably about a year, sometimes a little bit longer if I'm busy because I do work as well. So it's something that I love doing in my holidays. So to write it maybe only a couple of weeks, but to finish it at least a year.
And now we have
the one I've written about Nepal, it's been in my computer for probably 2 or 3 years now. So that one's taking a little bit longer.
We're looking forward to reading more of your books as well. We have Thomas. Excellent question.
Right here. There you go.
Will you make DVDs of Banna, Bree?
I'd love to one day. That's a great question. You have to talk to Mr. Disney and see whether he will make it into a film.
Our next question comes from Charlie, who's not here today, but she has a wonderful friend who's going to read the question for her.
Oh, fantastic.
Why did you write the story?
Because when we were in Rwanda and I was watching the gorillas, and as I said, my way of trying to do something about it was to write. And I was just thinking of a story. How can I write about something in a fun way for kids to think it's great to read, but actually talks about a really important issue? So it was my way of trying to make change.
Next questions. We have 2 more, and then I have 2 for the entire grade level to ask you, if that's okay.
Okay.
Go ahead and read yours.
I already read
Oh, sorry, Danielle. Okay.
They both read them. Braylon, are you up there? Come here.
How many books did you make?
Pardon?
How many books did you make?
Okay, for Banna and Bree, there's 4 books that I have published so far, and then there's 2 more in the computer.
That's a lot of books.
I know, it's a lot of time writing them too. I just love them. I love the Banna and Bree books, and I've just fallen in love. Even though I've written them, I've fallen in love with my characters. I just love them, so they're easy to write about.
Boys and girls, if you have a question that has not been asked, you may raise your hand now.
Was it difficult making Banna and Bree?
Was it difficult to write Banna and Bree?
Generally, no. It depends. You have to be in the right frame of mind. That's why I write up at the beach, because sometimes if you're distracted by other things like my children and the house, it is hard to write, and you stop writing because you think, I need to just write. Whereas when you're at the beach and the kids are playing outside, I can just sit by the ocean and just write, and it actually comes easily when I'm beside the ocean.
Say your name.
I'm Madison. And how many years has it taken you to write all of the Banna and Bree books?
Probably about, maybe 6 years. It's generally about a year for a book. So maybe 6 years, including, although some of them, like the ones in my computer, I've written at the same time. So, but the ones that are published and out, maybe a year each. And then I've just got busy.
Okay, Ms. Cross, I have 2 questions for you from our students, because when they submitted their questions, many of them had this question listed.
Okay.
The first one is, why did you make the end so sad?
It is sad, but that is reality, and that's actually what happens. And it was easier to make one of the buffaloes, easy to make the ending sad with the buffalo rather than with Banna and Bree, because we want them to come back to another book. And it's actually what happens over in Rwanda with the gorillas being poached. It is sad, and it is a shame that it happens. So I think I wanted it to be real and not just a happy ending, when it's not always a happy ending in real life. That's a great question, by the way, as well.
And then on a lighter note, many of our second graders would like to know what parrot missiles are.
I'm sure they could tell me. That was actually my husband when he edited my book to start with. He added that in. So that was my husband's sense of humour. So
when answering the question, boys and girls, when you see a bird flying above your head, you never look up at it, right?
That's exactly right.
Missiles are.
We've all been hit by them.
Raise your hand if your teacher began the read aloud on Wednesday for Banna and Bree Blown to Borneo.
Oh, wow.
That's right, Ms. Cross. We loved your book so much. We are extending it for the rest of the year, and now we are beginning to read Blown to Borneo across the grade levels of 2 through 5.
Fantastic.
Any of our students who have read Blown to Rwanda, when I met with them at the end of the reading, they said, "Are we going to read another one? Are we going to read another one?" So we've begun Blown to Borneo. Anybody have any specific questions about Blown to Borneo? We're going to take 2 questions. Stand up.
Is it gonna have is it gonna have the same ending of the other book?
I can't tell you the ending. I think it's a great ending because Banna and Bree come to the rescue. That's funny.
And this is James, one of our 3rd graders.
Is there gonna be any more hurting each other?
Sorry, any more?
James was asking if the book Blown to Borneo is going to be not as violent, but similar to that type of scenario.
No, they don't go. It's not the same kind of ending as Rwanda. It's still sad in that they find the orangutan and what has happened with the orangutan, but it's not as sad as Rwanda. So, and yeah, and what happens in Borneo is actually what happens in Borneo. Like the orangutans are put in cages. They are treated really badly by farmers. And it's actually reflective of what happens in real life. And that's why I've written about it. So we need to know this. When you go to the shop and you buy your sweets, a lot of palm oil is in the food that we eat. It's in the beauty products that we use. And you don't realize that you're contributing to what's happening with the orangutans. So That's what I mean. Like, unless you don't, this happens in real life, and unless you don't have the palm oil, then this continues to happen. Or it's certified palm oil, so it's from palm oil plantations where they haven't actually leveled down the habitat of the orangutans. They're sustainable, so the farmers have permission to be growing the palm oil. Whereas a lot of the palm oil that we have, and let's just take Easter eggs, for example. If you have an Easter egg when it's Easter time in a few weeks and it's got these soft fillings inside it, there's generally, in Australia anyway, it's labelled there's palm oil in it. Whereas the Easter eggs that are just chocolate don't have palm oil in it. So you can make choices as to whether you choose to have products that have palm oil in it or not. And if you choose to do that, then you have to know that that's what's happening with the orangutans in Borneo, is that they kill them so that they can plant trees so we can eat our palm oil. It's that simple. But to answer the question, the ending isn't as sad, but it's still realistic.
It is. So, Ms. Cross, I understand that you have a couple of treats for us that you wanted to share some pictures, and Mr. LeClaire is pulling them up on the screen now for us. Can you see them on your side?
I can see them. They've just come up on my computer. The first one that I can see in the order is the mother gorilla that I took a photo of when we were up walking in Rwanda. And there's 3 photos there of the gorillas. There's the mother gorilla, and then there's a younger gorilla, and then with that there's the baby, and the baby is lying on its back, and it was playing, and that's why I sent that one. That sort of inspired me for Little Innocent. Like, that was just this little baby gorilla, and it's playing at its mother's feet, and it was pulling the bark off the tree, and it was playing just like a toddler plays. And when you see them in their habitat, and you see them in the way they move and interact with their families, there's so many similarities between them and us. And that's what made me want to make a difference, because I was looking at those beautiful gorillas thinking, how can we be letting them be bordering on the point of extinction? And it's for me, I just needed to do something about it. The other photo at the end, it is a photo of me with a man, and that's our guide that took us up into the mountain. So when you asked about whether I'd met a poacher, that is the man that was the poacher that had been reformed, and he's now working as a guide. So that's it, and he was an actual poacher. So I put that photo in just so that you could see they just look like any other person there. They just, look just like you or I.
You had shared that you love holiday, and
Yeah.
when we began corresponding almost a year ago now, you had shared with me the many different places that you have traveled to. Would you please share that with our kids?
That's just something our family love to do, and it's something that my husband and I have always believed in, that we work to travel. And we work to give our children those experiences and the memories that we have with our children. Over Christmas, we went to Norway and we saw the Northern Lights, and we went and saw some reindeer, which was fantastic. My kids loved that. Then we went to Austria, but we love going to all the offbeat places. My daughter and I went horseback riding through Mongolia a few years ago, and that was just fantastic. We went to China and we held a panda, which was fantastic. And that's what inspired my 5th book that's in the computer, because that one's about the pandas. And that's actually my favourite of all of them, is the one with the pandas. And it's a little bit funny in places. So, yeah, that's one's probably my favourite. But, we just love anywhere that we can explore where we haven't been. Haven't been to the US, but we are thinking Alaska the year after next. So we're always looking for places to go, and places that have animals, like Borneo for the orangutans and Rwanda, and we love Africa. We're hoping to go back to Africa next year. But We just love going anywhere where we can see animals or just get out of the big cities and have fun as a family together.
Well, Ms. Cross, I can speak on behalf of our students, and we would like to say thank you so much for sharing all of this with us. The kids have truly been educated about poachers at this time. They're going to be learning more about the orangutans in Borneo. Next year, maybe it'll be another book. We'll see how that goes. But before we leave off, we have a message for you.
Fantastic.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Miss Ross. Happy birthday to you.
Oh, thank you so much. You've made my day.
But we do appreciate you taking the time. Again, for those of you that came in late, Ms. Cross, tell them what time it is there again.
It's now 11:30 at night.
It's 11:30 p.m. on her birthday, and she's hanging out with us here at 3:30 in the morning. That is
Where
wonderful
else
of
would
her.
I be?
Ms. Cross, I will be emailing you again soon. We thank you so much.
And I'll have
Have
to
a
talk
great
to you again soon. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Boys and girls, I want to tell you first.